Imagine this. You're sitting on your porch in 2025 sipping your morning coffee, and you ask yourself a question your parents never had to think about. Is the American dream still alive? For decades, the dream was simple: own a home, work a stable job, raise a family in safety, retire with dignity. But in 2025, things look different. The costs of living have gone up, wages haven't kept pace, and millions of Americans are questioning if that dream is still within reach. Here's the truth. The American dream hasn't disappeared, but it's shifting. Some people are still living it, while others feel like it's slipping further away every year. In this video, we're breaking down the real state of the American dream in 2025, and we'll also take a peek at what 2026 could bring. From housing and jobs to education, healthcare, and everyday living, we'll explore whether the middle class can still hold on to this iconic vision of success. But stick around till the end, because you might be surprised. There are places and opportunities where the dream is not only alive, but thriving. Section 1. Housing and the American Dream. Let's start with the cornerstone of the American dream: owning a home. For generations, buying a house wasn't just about shelter. It was about pride, security, and building wealth for the future. But in 2025, housing has become the single biggest obstacle standing in the way of that dream. The story of John and Lisa. Picture John and Lisa, a middle-class couple in their late 30s. They both work full-time. Together, they earn about $85,000 a year, which sounds decent. But when they try to buy a modest 3-bedroom home in their city, they hit a wall. The average home price nationwide in 2025 is hovering near $420,000 to $450,000. Mortgage rates are stuck around 6 to 7%, which means monthly payments can easily top $3,000. Renting isn't much better. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in many cities is now $1,900 to $2,200 per month. For John and Lisa, this isn't just frustrating. It's heartbreaking. Their parents bought homes in their late 20s, but now, at almost 40, they're still stuck renting. Housing costs versus wages. Here's the bigger picture. In the 1970s, the average home cost about 4 times the average annual income. In 2025, that ratio has jumped to nearly 8 times income. That gap makes home ownership nearly impossible for many middle-class families without major sacrifices. And this is why more Americans are moving away from expensive states like California, New York, and Massachusetts, and heading toward places like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and the Carolinas, where housing is still somewhat affordable. The rental crunch. Now, let's talk renting. For those who can't buy, renting should be the backup plan. But in 2025, renting is a challenge on its own. National rental prices have risen by 20 to 25% since 2020. Many younger families spend 40 to 50% of their income on rent. That leaves little left for savings, retirement, or emergencies, the very things the dream is supposed to protect. The 2026 outlook. So, what about 2026? Experts predict housing prices may cool slightly in some markets, especially in cities people are leaving, like San Francisco or Chicago. But in growing states like Texas and Florida, demand is still strong, meaning prices will likely keep climbing. Mortgage rates may dip if inflation eases, but it's unlikely they'll return to the ultra-low 3% rates of 2020 anytime soon. In other words, 2026 might bring relief for some, but the struggle will continue for many. Now, here's a question for you. And I'd love for you to drop your answer in the comments. If you could move anywhere in the US right now for affordable housing, where would you go? Think about it. Because in a few minutes, we'll talk about the states where the American dream still feels alive. Section 2. Jobs and income. Can work still provide security? If housing is the foundation of the American dream, then jobs and income are the fuel. Without steady, well-paying work, everything else, owning a home, raising a family, saving for the future, falls apart. But here's the question. In 2025, does hard work still pay off like it used to? Meet David. Let's take the story of David, a 45-year-old warehouse worker from Ohio. He's been with the same company for nearly 15 years. He's loyal, hardworking, and reliable. Back in 2010, his paycheck covered the mortgage, groceries, car payments, and even allowed him to take his family on a vacation once a year. Fast forward to 2025. His pay has only gone up about 20% in 15 years. But the cost of living? It's gone up over 60%. His grocery bill alone is almost double what it was just a decade ago. David isn't lazy. He isn't irresponsible. He's just stuck in an economy where wages can't keep up with prices. The wage gap reality. The median household income in the U.S. in 2025 is about $78,000. But when you compare that to the cost of housing, healthcare, and education, it's clear why so many middle-class families feel squeezed. Two incomes are now almost always required to reach what one income could cover in the past. And while high-paying jobs exist in tech, finance, and healthcare, not everyone can access those careers. The new landscape, remote work, and gig economy. The pandemic reshaped the job market. Remote work gave millions of Americans new flexibility. Families left expensive cities for smaller towns, bringing their jobs with them. But not every job can go remote. For retail workers, service workers, and tradespeople, remote work isn't an option. Many of them turn to the gig economy, driving for Uber, delivering food, or freelancing online. Does that bring in cash? Yes. Does it bring security, benefits, and long-term stability? Not always. Outlook for 2026 economists predict that job growth will continue, but wage growth may lag behind inflation. Industries like AI, renewable energy, and healthcare are expected to create opportunities. But the question remains, will these jobs support the average American or just a select few? Section 3. Education and the next generation. Now let's talk about one of the biggest investments families make. Education. For decades, parents believed sending their kids to college was the golden ticket to the American dream. But in 2025, that ticket is starting to look too expensive to cash. Meet Maria. Maria is a single mom in her 50s living in Florida. She has a daughter, Emily, who just graduated high school. Emily dreams of becoming a nurse, but the cost of college is staggering. The average annual tuition at a public university is $10,000 to $12,000. Private universities can charge $40,000 to $60,000 per year. Add housing, food, and books, and the total price tag can hit $100,000 to $200,000 for a 4-year degree. Maria is caught in the middle. She doesn't want Emily to drown in student loans, but she also doesn't want to crush her daughter's dream. The student debt crisis. As of 2025, Americans hold over $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. Many graduates in their 20s and 30s spend years just paying interest, delaying home ownership, marriage, and even starting families. This debt burden doesn't just affect the young. Parents in their 50s and 60s often take out loans for their children, meaning even as they near retirement, they're still paying for college. Are there alternatives? Yes, and more families are starting to look at them. Community colleges offer affordable 2-year degrees. Trade schools prepare students for high-paying jobs in construction, plumbing, electrical work, and healthcare. Online programs provide flexibility and lower costs. For many, the traditional 4-year degree is no longer the only path to success. Here's something to think about. If you were starting your career today, would you choose college, a trade school, or skip higher education altogether? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this is a debate happening in millions of American households right now. Outlook for 2026. The cost of education isn't expected to drop anytime soon. In fact, tuition could rise another 5 to 10% in many states. But more employers are beginning to recognize alternative skills, meaning that the definition of success might be shifting. The American dream for the next generation may not be about a degree from a big-name school, but about finding affordable ways to build a stable career without drowning in debt. Section 4. Healthcare, a dream or a nightmare? You can't talk about the American dream without talking about healthcare. Because what's the point of owning a home or having a good job if one unexpected medical bill can wipe it all away? Meet James and Karen. James and Karen are in their early 60s living in Arizona. They worked hard all their lives, saved responsibly, and were ready to enjoy retirement. But then James needed surgery. Even with insurance, the bill was staggering. $6,000 deductible, $400 per month premiums, $200 prescriptions. Suddenly, their retirement budget was shredded. Vacations and hobbies turned into medical co-pays and pharmacy receipts. The big picture. In 2025, the average American spends nearly $13,000 per year on health care. About 60% of bankruptcies in the U.S. are linked to medical expenses. Even families with good insurance face surprise bills, denied claims, and out-of-network charges.
Outlook for 2026. Healthcare costs are expected to keep climbing. Some experts predict a 5 to 7% increase in premiums by 2026. However, technology like telemedicine and AI-assisted diagnostics could help lower some costs, at least in the long run. But for now, the American dream still feels fragile when one illness can set families back decades. Section 5. Taxes, inflation, and everyday expenses. Even if you've got the housing, job, and healthcare puzzle figured out, there's another hurdle: the rising cost of everything. The inflation squeeze. Since 2020, Americans have faced the sharpest inflation in decades. By 2025, grocery prices are up 25 to 30%. Gas prices swing between $3.50 to $5 per gallon. Utility bills are 15 to 20% higher than 5 years ago. And while inflation is cooling a bit, many of those prices aren't going back down. Families are simply adjusting to a new, more expensive normal. The tax burden. Taxes also play a role in the dream. Middle-class families often feel stuck in the middle. Too wealthy to qualify for government help, not wealthy enough to take advantage of tax loopholes. By 2025, property taxes in states like New Jersey, Illinois, and California are sky high, making homeownership even tougher. On the flip side, states like Texas and Florida with no income tax continue to attract newcomers. Here's something interesting to think about. Would you rather live in a state with no income tax but higher housing costs like Texas or Florida, or in a state with cheaper housing but higher taxes? It's a tough balance, and I'd love to hear your take in the comments. Section 6. Is the American dream dead or just evolving? So let's put it all together. The American dream of 1950, a single-income household, white picket fence, and guaranteed pension, is gone. But that doesn't mean the dream itself is dead. It's changing. For some, the dream means moving to a more affordable state. For others, it means renting instead of owning, or working remotely from a small town. For younger generations, it may mean skipping college debt by learning a trade.
In other words, the American dream in 2025 isn't one size fits all. It's personal, flexible, and different depending on where you live and how you define success. Remember John and Lisa, the couple struggling to buy a home? In 2025, they decided to leave their expensive city and move to a smaller town in Tennessee. Their rent dropped by 40%. They found jobs they could do remotely, and for the first time in years, they were able to save money. For them, the American dream didn't disappear. They just had to redefine it. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. What does the American dream mean to you in 2025? Is it a home, a job, freedom from debt, or maybe just peace of mind? Drop your answer in the comments, because this conversation isn't just about economics. It's about identity, hope, and the future of America itself.